This podcast is not a substitute for a relationship with your mental health professional. Hey, hey, hey. Welcome back to another episode of the Mental Health is a Lifestyle podcast with your girl family, Andrea Wise-Brown. Oh, family, you already know that I am excited to be here again with you. Oh, family, and I'm hoping that you are excited to be here yet another week with me. Oh, family. So this is our last episode of 2024. Yeah, we did it. We did it. So that means that, yes, I have done 52 episodes because there is 52 weeks in a year this year. So yes, family, we are ending off 2024. Oh, and let me just say to you, if you're just scrolling by and you have not joined the family yet, I want you to join the family. Please join the family. And you can do so by clicking that little button and subscribing to the podcast, liking the podcast, sharing the podcast, and please commenting on the podcast. If you have questions for me, please type those questions in. If you're listening or watching on YouTube, I want to hear the questions. I want to hear the comments. You don't have to agree with me. You could challenge me, but let's do it respectfully. I'm here for it. I am here for the growth on both parts. And so the intention of this podcast is to empower you, to enlighten you, to educate you so that you have the power. I want to ignite the power in you so that you can live your best life. And I mean that from my toes all the way up to the hairs on my head. I mean that. Okay, family. So let's get into it. We are going to talk about how to break the trauma cycles that we carry, that we repeat over and over and over again. Those trauma cycles that we all will repeat over and over again that continue to get us into trouble if we don't break them. And so right now, I am the one, your girl is here to teach you how to do that. I'm sure on the internet, on on all of the TikTok and Instagram and Facebook, everybody's talking about trauma bonds and dysfunctional cycles and dysfunctional trauma and how it's traumatized and how I want to work through trauma. Everybody's talking about it, but do you really know how to break it? Because as we roll into 2025, I want you to have the tools to do so. It's real easy for somebody to talk about it over and over and over again. And, people keep putting out these little clips about trauma, and you choose this person because it's a trauma bond, and you choose this person, or you do this thing because, you've been traumatized as a child. Then most people who haven't been to therapy, it's like, what are they talking about? Like, what? Huh? And a lot of people will say, I ain't never been traumatized. Well, I'm trying to tell you, you probably have. Trauma just represents a shift in the brain after an impact, some type of impact. And it doesn't have to be a traumatic brain injury for your brain to have been impacted, for it to have changed course, because that's what trauma actually does, is it changes the course of your brain. It changes the way your brain works. It changes the way the synapses in your brain connect. It changes your perception of the world. That's what trauma does. Okay. That's the implications of trauma, the aftermath. However, a lot of you out there have been traumatized and you are not even aware of it. So let me just tell you that one of my specialties, my major specialty, is in my private practice. If you're part of the family, then I am a licensed psychotherapist. My license is an LPC, licensed professional counselor, and my I have a private practice, of course, and my main area of study is family of origin trauma. Okay. So trauma that originated in your family system. So I am going to tell you that sometimes in some families, people say, beating kids, you're supposed to beat the kids because it's going to change the way the kids act. Right. So in order for me to get this outcome from my child, then I need to beat him. You know what I'm saying? I need to beat him so that, he can act right. Well, I would beg to differ, okay, because once I was educated, now I will tell you this, because I have gotten many a beatings when I was a child, okay, what I learned through my family system and many others around in my culture was that, yes, if you beat a child, you spank a child, and we say spank, but I'm not even going to say spank. If you beat a child, because y'all know back in the day, we was getting beat. Okay. So if you beat a child, then that you're supposed to do that because that does change their behavior. But when I started to study psychology and I started to study trauma, I started to understand abuse. I started to understand the implications or the impact of beating a child just for your reward, right? Because the reality is when you beat a child, if a child is doing something, the child is not really learning why they should stop. You understand? They haven't really learned why, unless you explain and educate the child on why they should stop. Now, children do need, and people, okay, need punishment and reward. Punishment and reward does change behavior, but the punishment does not have to be in the way of a beating. Okay. So a punishment could be, which, I would encourage you to take things away. When you take things away from a child, especially the things that they love, you're going to see some change behavior. But when you beat a child, when a child does something that they aren't supposed to do, not only will you change behavior, but then the child will begin to fear you, They lose some trust in you, and they start to lose a sense of self-worth. Just like slaves did in the days of slavery when slave masters would beat slaves. Okay? It is demoralizing. It's not humanistic. So and it was and the goal of it was to break a human down so that they can feel less than, almost like an animal, so they could feel less than human and could submit. Now, that's not what we want to do to our children. So that is an example of some trauma that could have been put on some children that could have changed the course of the brain. It could have created some fear, some doubt, and it really could have taken away from a child's sense of self-worth and belonging in the world. So now, I know some people who all into beating and they want to beat. And I think I was trying to make this point and I kind of went off into another when I said that the benefit of the beating, right, of a child, a lot of times a parent will think that it's for the child. But most times it's because the parent is at their wits' end and they have no more patience. And so instead of them sitting in it and really working with the child, getting to actually know what the child needs and how the child ticks, and then taking away, removing those things from the child so the child can feel the absence so that they want to change, so they get it. Instead, the parent or caregiver just wants to make a change real quick because they don't have the patience to do the work, to do the parental work, the healthy parental work. So they just want to pop, 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 smack, smack, smack so that they can get instant gratification. It doesn't change the child's behavior. It really doesn't. It does for a short period of time, but that's not real change. So that's just one example of trauma that a child could experience over and over again, and it could show up in the future in their lives. A lot of times children who have been beaten, or girls, let me just say specifically, who have been beaten, a lot of times what I've seen in my practice is they end up in relationships where the person that they love has started to beat them. And they don't leave because they've got mixed messages that love can hurt. Because if my caregiver, when I was a child, beat me and I know that they love me, well, so then Johnny, he says he loves me. So if he beats me, it was because I messed up. I did something wrong. And I have conflict. Of course he loves me. Yeah, he beat me because I did something wrong, right? Because he loves me, because I hurt him in some way. Yeah, and he was supposed to, but that's because that's something that they learned during childhood, which was traumatic because it changed the brain. Because if they were in a household where parents did not beat their kids when they made missteps, then most likely when they get older, if that same girl, if she was to encounter Johnny and Johnny started to yoke her up or smack her when she did something that he didn't like, she'd be like, what in the world? Because she hadn't had that experience before. It would not feel like it's normal. She wouldn't have her messages crossed that love can beat, that love can hurt. She wouldn't have gotten that mixed message. So she would have been, soon as Johnny started putting his hands close, she would have been out of there. You got me? So we're just talking about the impact of trauma and how a lot of you have been traumatized. And I'm not just talking about beating. I'm talking about from all different types of abuse that you may have experienced that will show up in your life as an adult as trauma. And this is what we're talking about. We're talking about you moving through all of that trauma into 2025. Come on now. I'm going to teach you how to break the trauma cycles so that we don't just keep repeating the same things over and over and over again. So let me just first start off with, as I'm explaining to you, giving you just one little example of trauma, the first step to actually breaking trauma cycles is to acknowledge that you've experienced some trauma, to acknowledge that you really may look at the world differently. And maybe it's in an unhealthy way. A lot of times when I speak to men in my practice and we'll go back and maybe they're dealing with sex addiction. They could be dealing with, porn addiction or maybe some other kind. But when it's connected to sex, and with other women, and when we start talking, and I'll talk to them about, okay, your childhood. And a lot of times they'll tell me, oh, my childhood was fine. Everything was good. My mom was good. My dad was good. Everything was good. But then we start peeling back the layers, because y'all know I love to peel back the layers. We start peeling back the layers, and then they'll start to tell me about a relationship that they had when they were in the first and the second grade with some older girl. So first, second grade, they was 6 or 7 years old, and they was actually being fondled by a girl who was 18 years old. Okay. Or let's just say there was a guy when he was 9 years old, and then a neighbor who was a woman or even a woman or a man who was 19, 20, or 21 was fondling them. Or they start having sex with them when they were 9, when they were 10, when they were 11. And I start to explain to them, you were sexually abused. But they go, what? Huh? That wasn't sexual abuse. I liked it. Liking it, and this is the thing, it's not liking it where you came up with it because at 9 years old and 6 years old and 7 years old, 6 years old, 9 years old, 7 years old, you are not thinking about sex unless you were exposed to it. You're just not. You may be thinking about being attracted to someone and liking someone, but actually thinking about sex. And you definitely weren't thinking about having sex with someone else at that age unless you were exposed to sex, whether it was through pornography, whether it was like an older sibling or family member who exposed you to it. That was whether it was through magazines, whether through social media. That is where the curiosity came. But through a normal developmental brain. That's the way our brains develop from year to year to year, from zero, keep going up, zero meaning birth. As you start to maturate through life, your brain maturates, it grows, and it has different stages. When you're 6 and 7 and you're 9, you're not thinking about sex, okay? Unless you were exposed. So if you have an older cousin or family member or a teacher, somebody at the church, a neighbor who starts to fondle you, or you start having sex with them at 10, 9, you were sexually abused. You were. And it was traumatic because it changed the way you saw life. It changed the way you saw boys, girls. Got me? Now it gave you something else to think about, whether it was, sex or body parts, or where you weren't even thinking about that before until you were exposed. You were traumatized. The brain took a hit. The brain changed. And then this is where it really gets mixed up, is your desires start to change. And then sometimes you can interchange what you think is love, attention, accepted, being wanted, desire, with sex and sexual touch. So when those things get mixed up, then you can become adult who becomes a sex addict, who's addicted to sex, addicted to porn, addicted to women on top of women on top of women. Got me? Well, because you were traumatized. So a lot of times when men come to me and we're talking, and then they start to mention that when we start talking about childhood, they go, "Oh my God, I didn't even know because I thought I liked it." Yeah, afterwards, because it felt good. But what was the psychology before it even happened? When I'm telling you, my love, your brain wasn't even thinking that. Your brain wasn't even wired like that. So you weren't even thinking that. Then when you got that first touch or whatever that thing was, it was traumatizing. Traumatizing. Just like when girls also become molested, sometimes when it's an older cousin or brother or family member, mixed messages. So then it's like the person that I love or liked or I thought I was safe with, but yet they're touching me, So all of those things are traumatic. So what I'm here to do is I'm calling your attention to, we're going to bust this down in 2025. How to break that trauma and the trauma cycles. Because when you don't break it, then you continue to act out in the same ways. And where the issue lies is, as in acting out in the same ways, it impedes on your functioning in life. So you start to ruin relationships. You start to ruin friendships. You understand? You start to ruin your relationships with your family, your familiar relationships, your relationships with partners. Maybe you can't fall in love. Maybe you keep cheating on the partner over and over again. Like, it impedes on your functioning, and it robs you of your happiness. It robs you of your quality of life. So this is why we really want to face this trauma, so that we can work on getting rid of it, so that it doesn't show up in our lives, so it doesn't ruin our lives. So the first step is acknowledging the trauma. Yes, I've been traumatized. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I've been traumatized. This is exactly it. Okay. And so then, the second step is, here we go. So you can first say, okay, I think all my relationships are being ruined, or somebody keeps telling me, maybe this guy keeps telling me I'm the problem. I keep yelling, I keep fighting. And this is the fourth relationship that I'm in. I'm saying as a woman, and they keep telling me that I want to fight and I'm the problem. And you probably been traumatized. Okay. So then this is what you do. when you realize that you've been traumatized, you find a therapist. You go seek a therapist. I've told you before, there's an earlier episode when I show you how to find a good therapist. You can go to psychologytoday.com. You can check your EAP, that's your employee assistance program at your job. If you have insurance, you can look on the back of your card, and when they say member services, you can call them up and ask about your mental health services and your benefits. Find you a therapist so that they can help you work through that trauma, and they can give you the skills that you need when you feel triggered. When you feel triggered in life. So life is just playing out, and then all of a sudden you start to react in a traumatic way. Then therapists, we can help you and teach you, give you skills where you can learn how to stop that and to reel it back in. To not act out like that. You can act out in another way, or you can express yourself in another way. That's what therapy, one of the things that therapy is great for, okay? Because it teaches you skills of how to move forward into the life that you are trying to create without ruining relationships, yet nourishing relationships, okay? So, acknowledge the trauma, you're going to seek therapists, and then let me just tell y'all, I just watched this movie on Netflix, and maybe you guys have seen it, and it's called This Ends With Us. This Ends With Us was an amazing movie. It was mind-blowing, but I loved it because there were a lot of different, and I don't want to ruin the movie for you, but I want y'all to watch it on Netflix. But let me just say that there were a lot of different subtleties in this movie in regards to abuse and a lot of trauma, childhood trauma that was playing out in these adults' lives. And these adults on this show were financially successful. So if you were to look at them from the outside, you think, oh, they got it made. They can't be traumatized. But they were all traumatized during childhood. And then some of the story played out so that you could kind of understand how they were traumatized. And then it showed up in their actions as adults. This Stops With Us was a freaking amazing. It was amazing. I could talk about it over and over again. Me and one of my sister girls, we were talking about it, obsessed. I love it, love it, love it, love it. And I've recommended it so many times. And she was the one that encouraged me to watch it. And it was really good. And so, because for me, it's not that easy for me to say that a movie about trauma and, and psychology, I'm not going to just say, I'm not easy to say that that's good unless it's really good, unless it's accurate, so it has to be well written. And this was well written, and they acted their behinds off. So please go see that. Anywho, because that will kind of explain to you some of these things that we're talking about and trauma and the root of it. Okay, the root of it, the family origins of the trauma. All right, so let's get back to it. So the third step is going to be to make a commitment. So once you're working with the therapist and the therapist starts to give you these tools and these skills because you've acknowledged your trauma, and then you'll work with them and you'll learn what your triggers are, how you're triggered in these certain situations. So how you're triggered, once you learn what your triggers are, then you have to make a commitment, if you want to be better, to do something better. You must make the commitment, and you're making a commitment to yourself. You don't need to make a commitment to anybody else. If you want to see change in your life, if you want to overcome the trauma that you've experienced during childhood, if you want to break the trauma cycles in your life, then you need to make the commitment to yourself. You making a commitment to somebody else, I don't know how long that's going to last, but I am hoping that you understand the power of you making a commitment to you. When you make a commitment to you, you show that you are worthy of having all the things that you desire in life. You show that you are amazing, that you are worth it. You understand? Let me tell you something. If you can't make a commitment to yourself, then you daggone sure can't make a commitment to nobody else. And you better not ever expect somebody else to make a commitment to you and stand on it, because they're watching that you don't value yourself and that you aren't making a commitment to you. Okay? So family, you must, once you find out what the trauma is, you identify it, and you get the skills from a professional. The next thing is to make a commitment to yourself that you are going to be the person that you desire to be. All right. And so then now you've made this commitment. Now you need to identify. Number 4 is the barriers. What are the barriers that's stopping me from following through with my commitment? So let's just say in 2025, if you say, okay, I am going to lose 30 pounds. And hey, family, come on over here because I have something for you. Starting off with a go-to guide for keeping your minds healthy and strong. This right here is the Bible to mental health. It's your mental health Bible. The name of it is 6 Pillars to Power Up Your Mind and Make Mental Health a Lifestyle. Everything that you need to know about keeping your minds healthy and strong is in this go-to guide. Where you get it from? Well, you get it from awisebrown.com/shop. But in this go-to guide, honey, in this mental health Bible, you know what you're going to find out? You're going to find out the benefits of aromatherapy, and how it can shift your mood. But guess what? You don't have to go anyplace else to look for your aromatherapy because your girls got you, okay? You can get some aromatherapy here. This is aromatherapy is in this candle. This is called a slice of happiness. It makes me tingle, like literally makes me tingle. A slice of happiness. This is a cruelty-free candle with no parabens, no formaldehyde, and no known suspected carcinogenics. Now, you know, you go out here and you find these candles that smell good, but are they good for you? Are they good for your brain? Come on now, get real with yourself. Well, this one smells delicious and it's good for you. Made with essential oils. It's a soy candle. Amazing. You can burn it or you can just walk by and smell it. Lord have mercy, it's so good. Okay, so that's your candle, your aromatherapy, which raises the dopamine in your brain. That's your natural feel good neurotransmitters in your brain. All right, y'all. And I'm a part of you. You're a part of me. We are a family. We got hoodies now, and these are unisex hoodies, and they wear well, they wash well, and they feel so good. So you can wear them over your clothes, you know what I'm saying, and look dope, or you can wear them as your clothes with nothing under them, which I like to do often. And when you travel everywhere, I mean, every time I wear them, I'm moving around. People are always asking me whether I'm traveling, going to the supermarket. What's that? Who's that? And I'm like, mental health is a lifestyle. Because see, this is on the back. Okay, they come in white and they come in black. I'm like, join the family. Mental Health is a Lifestyle podcast. So there you go, family. Don't you ever say that I ain't give you nothing. You get all of these things from awisebrown.com/shop. All right, I got your goods. I got you. You don't have to go anyplace else. I'll see you on the other side. And I am committing to myself, not to anybody else, but to myself, that I want to lose 30 pounds. So now you need to identify, first of all, you know, I'm one of the people who can help you do this. Is you can go back and find out, why are you emotional eating? You know, what is the reason? Why did you gain all this weight? Okay. So anywho, now we're going to get down to identifying. You've already committed. Now we identifying barriers. So if you know going in the donut shop is a barrier, you better stay your behind out of the donut shop. If you know that your favorite food is, I don't know, Red Lobster biscuits, I'll just throw that out there from back in the day, then how you really think you're going to go into Red Lobster and order a salad when they bring those butter cheddar better biscuits to the table, and you setting yourself up for failure? Identify a barrier. A barrier is the biscuits, because that's my favorite. I'm staying away from that. If you say in 2025, I'm going to stop drinking. If it's for the whole year, then it's the whole year. If it's for your whole life, then it's your whole life. If it's for the month of January, then it's for the month of January. But I'm just saying, if you are committing to yourself, then a barrier would be going to a bar and the drinks are just rolling. But you say, I'm just going to drink me a mocktail. I'm going to drink me a mocktail. You're going to drink your mocktail. But if you feel like you having some issues with the alcohol, when that alcohol comes around that table and everybody else is laughing and loosey-goosey and you just as straight as an arrow with your mocktail, I don't know. I believe you're going to get triggered. So why set yourself up? Eliminate the barriers. Don't you go to no place where they sell and serve alcohol unless you are really far away, unless it is a restaurant and the people or person who you're going with is not drinking either. So you're all mocktails for the table. Now you working on something. Let's identify what the barriers are so that we can curb the barriers, so we can remove the barriers. Got me? Come on now, be smart. You ain't gonna hang out in a Krispy Kreme shop and you saying you want to lose 30 pounds. It's just not. Just don't do it. Why would you do that? Why would you do that to yourself? Know your triggers. Therapy can help. Understand the barriers, identify the barriers, and then you want to build resilience, build strength. And let me tell you, you build strength and build resilience by staying away from certain things, the things where you know you're triggered, so that you get stronger, and by relying on who? God. You build resilience by trusting and relying on God, on the Almighty. That's who. That's who's got your back. That's who, when you start quivering and shaking and you feeling like this is what you need to do and you got to do. You want to build resilience? You want to get stronger? Get on your knees. Ask God for strength. That's what you do. You connect to God because He's got it. He's got you. You know, I'm just thinking, family, as we end out the year, this is the last podcast of the year. I want to help you. We're going to work through this and we're going to work through it together. How to break trauma cycles, how to break those cycles. I'm giving it to you right here, but you're going to have to work for it. You're going to have to work for it. You know, sometimes fear is going to come up in your life too, when you may be going through some things, right? And fear becomes triggering. And sometimes fear makes you stop and go back to what's comfortable. But I am telling you, you're breaking through that trauma. You do these steps and break through the trauma. An example, I will say, y'all know I broke my foot August the 14th this year. And I talked about my journey through breaking my foot and how I really relearned some lessons, right? They showed up again in a different way. And I've grown so much, honey, through breaking my foot. But I like to draw parallels between breaking my foot and my foot healing in life, and how things go on in life. And sometimes in life we can feel broken, but healing is coming if you do the work. Just recently I went to one of my one of my physical therapy sessions. And in my physical therapy session, this is something that really stuck out to me. My physical therapist, she's amazing. As she was working with me, she was asking me to do something. So she was asking me to do a specific move. And as she was asking me to do this move, and let me just tell y'all something. I do like to work out, but I've never been to physical therapy before. I've never hurt like a muscle, or I never broke anything in my life. So this experience for physical therapy is new for me. It was new for me. So I literally thought physical therapy was easy. I thought you just sit down on machines and you push them, and then your body just gets stronger, and you start to heal. But no, 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 no. Physical therapy is challenging. Physical therapy is hard work. And on the days that I would go get my physical therapy, I didn't even need to go to the gym. Okay. I would be sore working muscles that I would work at the gym after physical therapy. So I loved it. However, this one day when I was at physical therapy, and it's probably happened twice, but she wanted me to do this move, and it was kind of like holding dumbbells, but it was like doing a squat, but it was called a split squat. And if you work out, then you know. However, let me tell y'all something. When she told me to do it, this was something that, she just told me recently after I've now been in physical therapy, probably now for, I don't know, maybe 6 weeks or 7 weeks. So she sees my strength. She sees, my resilience. She sees that, that I'm growing. She sees my abilities are changing. So she's challenging me, which I like that. See, that's what I do in counseling. So she's challenging me, and she's asking me to do something that I'm thinking, girl, I can't do that, because all I was thinking about when she asked me to hold these heavy dumbbells and to do this, squat. It was a split squat. But I was supposed to go down with the weight, and the foot was broken. Okay, y'all. And I still feel some pain in the foot. It's not fully healed. That's only been 4 months ago. So as I was holding the weights, and I was like, I can't do that. So I put the weights down. Okay, this is Andrea. And I'm like, listen, do you know that this is the foot? And she's looking at me like, yeah. And I'm like, well, see, I'm having problems with this foot. And I was like, even before this foot, when I used to do squats before in the gym, under the ball of my foot, I had this problem where she's just looking at me. She's looking at me, and I'm explaining and explaining. And then as I started explaining, and she just looked at me, and she was like, okay, so that was then, and this is now. Come on, go down. I want to see the squat, and I want you to do a split. It's a split squat. I'm probably not saying it right, but I was kind of split. And then I needed to be up on the balls of my feet. Okay. Y'all know I broke the ball of that foot, broke the metatarsals, and you need to hold these weights. And she's looking at me, and I'm like, I can't, you can. And then she said, okay, go ahead and do it. In that moment, y'all, and this is just how my brain always works, I was like, wow. So the trauma that I experienced a long time ago when I was working out and the balls of my feet, I had an issue when I was doing squats. That came back up. That fear came back up. And I was like, I can't do it. And then guess what? I was re-traumatized again in August, and my foot was actually broken. So I'm like, oh Lord, I definitely can't do it. So it was the fear from the trauma that I experienced in the past that was showing up today, and it was literally going to stop me if I didn't have someone in front of me who understood the trauma that I had been through. Understood it. She acknowledged that, yeah, okay, I see that you have some fear. She acknowledged that I had trauma. She was there standing to support me. She was looking at me like, no, you getting ready to commit. Didn't you say that you want your foot to be back at 100%? She looking at me like that, because in my head, that's what I'm thinking. Andrea, what's your commitment? What is your commitment? Oh no, your foot is going to be back at 100%. So I'm looking at her as I'm saying no, and she looking at me, as she's like, okay, let's do this. And I'm like, oh, what's my commitment? And then the barrier here was the fear of the trauma from the past. That was a barrier. But baby, when she said, let's go head down, you good. In that moment, when I was enlightened, I said, go down. You're not going to let your past affect your present, Andrea. You are here to build resilience. You are here to build strength. So I said, okay, God, I'm going down. Lord Jesus, I cannot break my foot again. You would not have me in this situation again. So I had to trust God, trust the professional, trust my ability. And I was squatting like a mug. Y'all hear what I say? I'm talking about this foot is strong. Squatting and just walking across the gym in these split squats with these heavy weights, and my foot just getting stronger. Didn't break. It didn't get re-injured. So now, what if I was a wuss and I said no, and I cussed her out and I left the gym and I said, I'm not doing this. I wouldn't do that, but right. But no, I realized, oh, this is a trauma response. No, my love, to myself. You ain't going to do this because your coach is sitting here looking at you, telling you, I'm the professional, okay, i.e. therapist. I got you. I see your trauma. I understand. I see your growth. I see your strength. I know where you can be. I've helped other people through it, i.e. me, therapist. So come on, I'm challenging you. Let's go get it. You can do it. And it was only the fear that would have stopped me. But I did not let it stop me because of my commitment. You understand? Because of my commitment to myself. I cannot expect anybody else to honor commitments to me if I don't honor my commitments to myself, because I know I'm worthy. So, building resilience, I called on the Lord and I squat across that gym back and forth 6 times. Okay. An example, draw parallels. I tell you my story so you can put yourself in my shoes. What's going on in your life where you are allowing the trauma to stop you from being who God created you to be? What's going on in your life? How is your trauma playing out in your life? Do you know if you were traumatized? Do you know if you were? How it's ruining your life? Breaking relationships? Do you know that? Maybe ending your opportunities for jobs or to make more money? Do you understand how your trauma is getting in the way? And if you do have an understanding, when are you going to commit to yourself? When are you going to commit to yourself to break the trauma cycles? Well, hopefully you do it now as we are moving into 2025. Come on now, family, make the commitment. So here we go. Here go the steps. Here we go. How to break trauma cycles. Number 1, you have to acknowledge first that you have been traumatized. Acknowledge what's the trauma. Number 2, you need to seek help from a professional. Find a good therapist. Number 3, once that therapist works with you and gives you the tools to move forward, make the commitment to yourself to do that work. Because if you don't commit to yourself, how do you expect anybody else to honor commitments to you? If you don't honor your own commitments to yourself. Number 4, you're going to identify the barriers that you're facing. Once you're triggered by your trauma, what keeps popping up? What keeps popping up that you need to move through? What are those barriers? You're going to identify what they are so you can curb them. And honey, number 5, which is the biggest of them all, always, is to build resilience by trusting God. All right, family, you have the plan. We are walking into 2025, honey. We ready. We put these little tools that I just gave you today in your little knapsack, okay? Put it in your little knapsack for when you need it, okay? All right? So come on, family. Let me just let you know that I love you, and I am saying you got this. And then I'm saying, Happy New Year. Happy New Year. And I am going to see you on the other side. I will see you, family, because we have completed another episode, the last episode of the year. So I will see you on the next episode of the Mental Health is a Lifestyle podcast with your girl, Andrea Wise-Brown. I love you, love you, love you.